Hello everyone, and welcome to another Deep Dives Discussions video, where this time I'll be talking about the upcoming horror title, the Callisto Protocol. I have to say, the Callisto Protocol intrigues me on a number of levels, so I thought I'd make a short video talking about why. The Callisto Protocol was announced during the Game Awards 2020, and I don't know about you, but at the time it injected a little excitement into what was a miserable year for most. You already got the vibe from the trailer that it was very Dead Space in feel. Then, Glenn Schofield appeared on screen to tell us that their goal was to make the single most scariest game on PC and consoles. A bold statement, to be sure, but if anyone can do it, then surely the mastermind behind Dead Space can. I've covered Dead Space on this channel already, so if you're looking for a little background on that, then you should check out my deep dive. With Dead Space going on to win more than 80 industry awards, it's easy to see why the Callisto Protocol is very much anticipated by many. But can Glenn Schofield capture the same magic he did with Dead Space? Is the Callisto Protocol going to be a carbon copy of its ancestor, or will it be a true spiritual successor? Well, let's have a little discussion about it. I think it goes without saying, any game Glenn Schofield would have made after Dead Space would always have been compared to Dead Space. With good reason. It's a legacy that will always follow him. What does that mean for the Callisto Protocol though? We've seen quite a bit of it now. Health bars are still on the back of characters, there's a distinct lack of HUD, it has a very similar third-person viewpoint, and there's even the GRP, which is basically the Kinesis module from Dead Space. Now, while it has a lot of similarities to Dead Space, it also seems to emanate its own unique identity. There's an even bigger focus here on melee combat, with the protagonist Jacob being able to dodge incoming attacks and respond in kind with a stun baton. Of course, you can still shoot, but it seems to be less focused on strategic dismemberment and more on scrappy close quarter engagements, giving an overall edgy and tense vibe. You really will be fighting for your life. Unlike Dead Space, the telekinetic ability in this game can also be used to throw enemies as well, adding another layer to the already good-looking combat. Another aspect to look at here is the general situation you are in. You are a character in space, fighting against an absurd amount of alien creatures that are capable of tearing you into pieces, with your prime goal being to survive and escape. The general musings from people that have got hands-on have said, yeah, you know what? It is very much like Dead Space, but it definitely does enough to differentiate itself from it. The prison setting, for one, gives the Callisto Protocol a very different vibe to Dead Space, and the character of Jacob also looks like a very different type of protagonist when compared to Isaac. For me, the fact that the Callisto Protocol is built on the structural basis of Dead Space can only be a good thing. I would have been slightly disappointed if it was just another reskin of Glenn Schofield's original, but it doesn't look like the case here. Everything we've seen so far looks fresh enough to stand out from the shadow of Dead Space, with the horror and gameplay elements alone being enough to get me on board. As always, I'd be interested to know if you think the Callisto Protocol has done enough to differentiate itself from Dead Space, so please let me know in the comments. It goes without saying, the graphics we've seen so far look stunning, like ridiculously stunning. Every new trailer I watch leaves my jaw open with just how pretty it looks. Well, as pretty as gore can be, but you get what I mean. It's even more apparent when you look at how well animated the actors' faces are. 3 confirmed actors are in the Callisto Protocol so far. The 2 we've seen are Josh Duhamel and Karen Fukuhara, with the yet-to-be-seen Sam Witwer announced at Comic-Con 2022, and more to be announced, which is pretty cool. These might be the most impressive faces I've seen in a horror game since Until Dawn. Yeah, the Quarry was more recent, but aside from Ted Raimi, the rest of the cast looked pretty ropey, with Until Dawn looking far superior. It's no surprise that Unreal Engine 5 is being used to amazing effect, making everyone and everything in the Callisto Protocol look stunning. Josh Duhamel and Karen Fukuhara's presence is definitely going to give the Callisto Protocol a boost while it's trying to tell its story, and the fact that it looks so realistic is only going to immerse you even further. From what we've seen in the trailers, The animations are good enough to showcase these thespians' respective ranges, so really, it's now down to the writing to see if the story can be a slam dunk. I guess it's the only thing that's unknown right now because, you know, it's not out yet. Personally, I think story aside, it's all going to boil down to whether or not it's a good horror experience. If I can feel immersed enough that the slightest noise puts me on an edge to the point where I jump out of my skin at the right moments, then we are all onto a winner, and the story will be a nice bonus if it's any good. The Callisto Protocol looks like it has it in it to deliver here, but I'll reserve judgment until I have hands on. Isn't it funny that in January 2023, Dead Space Remake is going to be released, almost as if it was timed to kind of compete? It could just be by mere coincidence, but I'm hedging my bets that as soon as EA heard Glenn Schofield was doing a Dead Space-like, they pushed the button on a game that really didn't need remaking. Considering how much I like OG Dead Space, I'm definitely not hyped for it. I'll try it and I'll probably like it, but that's as far as my excitement goes, which is just weird. Dead Space, despite all its love, just isn't generating as much hype or talking points as, say, Silent Hill 2 Remake or any of the Resident Evil remakes. Maybe it feels a little forced. As I mentioned earlier, the Callisto Protocol was announced in December 2020, and 7 months later, Dead Space Remake was announced as well. It just feels a little too much of a coincidence, and given that Glenn Schofield has nothing to do with the remake, I'm inclined to believe that it's just EA making an attempt at a power move. The Callisto Protocol, on the other hand, is generating hype and lots of it. Personally, I think that it's because it looks genuine and fresh, made by people who are not just in it for the cash, but because they want to make a decent video game as well. Plus, it looks like a natural evolution of what Dead Space could have become had things gone differently. Anyway, apologies folks, I'll now remove my tinfoil hat. Overall, what do we think of how the Callisto Protocol is shaping up? I for one cannot wait to get hands on with it and uncover its secrets. I think it has a lot to offer the horror genre, and if done correctly, could be one for the gaming history books. Once again, please use the comment section of this video to have a discussion about what you think. As per usual, if you haven't done it already, please make sure you hit the subscribe button and also like this video. If you want to keep up to date with video news or thoughts that come out of my head, please give me a follow on Twitter at DonPedroX. If you want to support what I do, I have a Patreon. Links will be in the description of this video. Right, see you next time.